DiMaggio holds the record for longest hitting streak, which lasted for 56 games in 1941 with the Yankees.
Southern Oak Insurance. Our family protecting yours.
Old school.
Going to be stolen, I think, by the doctor. Yes, he's got it. Way rock the baby to sleep and slam dunk.
Stolen by Bird and the cut to DJ. Yes! Buckle up for Kobe Bryant. New era. Oh! A jawbreaker! Curry way down top. Bang! It's all basketball. A spectacular move by Michael Jordan. Lace them up. It's time for 1010XL's Open Gym. Leading the break, here's R.J. Saunders.
And it is the basketball show for the basketball fan on a chilly Saturday morning here in Jacksonville. R.J. Saunders here with you. Casey Dobson in the box. The OGs are back.
Yeah, baby.
Live and direct for you. And most importantly, we thank you, the city of Jacksonville, for taking time out of your day to listen to the program and talk hoops with us, looking to make Jacksonville a basketball town, one dribble of the basketball at a time. And your way onto the show, as always, is the text line 641-1010. You can also hit up the MyBookie Digital Studios wherever you're listening to the show via Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Just type in 1010XL. Our question of the day for this weekend, and it's Christmas time. Most wonderful time of the year, as they like to call it. So many are ordering gifts. You're making plans to travel to see family for the holiday season. So I wanted to ask this to you a little bit early before we get into Christmas Day. Who's the most gifted NBA player that you have seen during your time watching NBA basketball? Not saying who's the best player ever. Just a person you thought was the most gifted athlete. And I'm sitting down at this table right now at 11:05 and saying, could we make the argument that Kyrie Irving may be one of the most gifted basketball players of all time? He is an absolute maestro. I don't know how he comes up with half of the notes he is on the basketball court. How does he come up with that stuff in his head? But I would like to hear from you, 641-1010. So I'll start with this, and there was a reason why I watched the Lakers game last night, aside from being a fan. But in being a fan, it was absolutely disgusting. Casey, can you just replay for me, take me out of my misery, what Trae Young did last night?
Hawks trying to win it, not give the Lakers a chance. Back to Hunter, back to Trae. He'll take the three. Game! 134-132. Lakers don't have a timeout. They need 2 to tie, 3 to win. Gabe Vincent to LeBron, 3 to win. No good! Hawks win! The Hawks win in overtime.
Freaking grief, this team disgusts me so much.
Speak up, we couldn't hear you.
This team is disgusting! But we're not getting into Lakers talk yet. I mean, we may do that next week. I will do it sometime before the year is out and we get into 2025 if the creek don't rise. But aside from being a fan, there has been this talk recently. If you look at NBA Twitter and you look at Lakers Twitter, to be more specific, to where individuals are saying LeBron is washed, Father Time is finally caught up to him. This is no longer the self-proclaimed king that we know. And myself, because I didn't want to take the 41-point lashing into consideration that the Lakers took by the hands of the Miami Heat in South Beach just a couple of nights ago, I really wanted to watch the game and see for myself, is LeBron James washed? Well, he, by his performance, you would say no. If in 43 minutes of play, he finished with a triple-double, 39 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks. And that's something to be expected of LeBron. Whether you're a hater of LeBron or whether you're a LeBron apologist, that's things that you want to see from him night after night after night if you're going to continue to put him in the argument with a guy such as Michael Jordan, this is what you want to see. But he went through a shooting slump during a 6-game stretch before the 41-point debacle at the hands of the Miami Heat, and before the game winner, Trae Young, put on the Los Angeles Lakers last night. I will say, he doesn't look as spry as he used to. Like, let's say a year ago, you thought that this guy could probably play 2, maybe 3 more years. This is going to be the guy that defeats Father Time. And he still may. But he is beginning to look a little bit slower. He's not able to take advantage of smaller guards as he was able to 4 or 5 years ago. He's not getting to the rim as godlike as he did just a few years back. Defenses collapse. You used to think he could just sky and jam over everybody, even in his older age. Doesn't seem that way anymore. At least the game I watched against the Atlanta Hawks, they were collapsing. Now, he's had a 2-game run, a 2-game stretch here where he has looked like old LeBron again. That the 6-game stretch was just a mere fallacy as to what we are to expect this season. And, hey, there's a lot more season left to go here. 82 games. We're only 25 games in. I'm not a LeBron hater. I'm just a Kobe guy. But whether you're a Jordan guy, a Kobe guy, a LeBron guy, a Kareem Magic Bird guy, we always had to prepare for the end. And LeBron James has admittedly said, my days are numbered. And I want to know from you, 641-1010, do you think that the days have been numbered for one LeBron James? There was a 6-game stretch there where he was averaging 17 points a game on 44% true shooting and was shooting a whopping 3 for 30 from downtown. And his misses from beyond the arc weren't hits the back of the rim or gives you that legendary Ralph Lauer call in and out. It's, oh my God, somebody close the window. Is there a draft? Is there a breeze coming in? He was missing as bad as I do on Thursdays when I play basketball. Bron, start coming and play with us, man. Get your confidence back, right? From mid-range, shooting about 11 for 23. Not bad. And now, when it comes to shots inside the restricted area, if we're just talking about that 6-game stretch, he's averaging 6 attempts per game now in that 6-game stretch that he had, as opposed to the 8 that he did last year. So, is this an age issue, or is this something that everyone has? This is just a normal shooting slump, which is something, honestly, we've never really seen from LeBron James at the peak of his powers. We've never really seen him have a slump in a 6-game stretch like this. But he was able to say something, I believe it was to Dave McMenamin, after either the Minnesota game or it could have been the Miami game, where he says, listen, how you get out of a shooting slump is you continue to work. And you continue to shoot those shots in practice, and you try to shoot yourself out of the slump. That's what great players do. And young players that are out there listening, that's what you should do too. Continue to work. But what we do understand is ball players, whether you ball in a rec league or you're hooping overseas, or if you're playing for, let's just say, a team like the Jacksonville 95ers, if you're in a shooting slump, it can mess with your confidence. And for a guy like LeBron James, this can mess with his confidence. Again, I'm just talking about that 6-game stretch, to where now teams mentally, they're not playing you for the jump shot. And now you're trying to force yourself into a rhythm. You're trying to force yourself into a flow. But if LeBron James is not hitting those outside shots, it now makes it harder for you to have those passing windows to a guy like Anthony Davis, maybe a 3 to Dalton Connect. It's now also harder for you to drive into the lane because now the teams are expecting for you to drive because you went 3 for 30 in your last 6 games from downtown. And the mental part of the game is as important as the physical part. And what do we always give credence to LeBron about? He is a cerebral guy. He's always thinking the game. Now, LeBron James's biggest fan, Draymond Green, he doesn't think that this shooting slump that LeBron had means that he was aging. Here's where Draymond Green goes about this when it comes to LeBron's shooting slump.
Is Father Time catching up to him? Absolutely, because Father Time catches up
to everybody,
to everyone. However, where I disagree is people are saying, we just saw it. He's done now. We've been waiting on it. Now he's done. No. I disagree with that. And the reason I disagree with that is because, quite frankly, what it looks like to me right now is he's a little tired. But you also have to remember, and I know all of y'all have forgot because you forget things so fast. You know, they played into the playoffs last year. They fought an uphill battle to actually make it there and get to the playoffs. And then he comes in and he does the Olympics.
No time off, FYI.
No time off. I think Bron has just hit a little bit of a wall right now. The way people are trying to throw it out there, like Father Time has caught him, and it's here in our face, and we're just about to watch this decline happen.
Now everybody's allowed to hit a wall. And if this is LeBron simply hitting a wall, and like I said, we have not seen this often, you hope as a Lakers fan, because he's with the Los Angeles Lakers, you hope that this is just a one-time thing and that what you saw against the Atlanta Hawks is going to be more of the norm. Because I didn't hear anybody really talking about Father Time was catching up to LeBron James where he had 2, 3, 4 games in a row where he had a triple-double. This season, I wasn't hearing that Father Time had caught up to him. But this 6-game stretch before the Atlanta Hawks game and that Miami Heat game, now individuals are saying this guy is washed. Father Time is finally knocked on the door. That Amazon box is right at the James family compound. Here's the scary thing that Draymond Green said when he comes to LeBron James took no time off during the summer. Now, I'm not trying to compare the two, but hear me out here. When asked by Bill Simmons, Steve Nash, why the Lakers super team thing didn't work out when Nash and Dwight Howard got there, Nash had to attribute it to myself, Kobe, and Powell, really since 2007, 2008, had played year-round basketball for a few years. Deep playoff runs. For Kobe and Powell, they were going to the NBA Finals. Then you're playing in the Olympics. Then you play another 82 games. And in Kobe's case, you're immediately going to training afterwards. Then you have another deep playoff run by the LA Lakers in 2010. Then you're playing in the FIBA World Games, going to the Olympics again. By the time we all got together, we're on borrowed time. You heard Kobe say that on ESPN First Take. He was trying so hard to get that 6th ring, but he uses the analogy of Icarus. I'm flying too close to the sun. My number was called. Achilles gives out. Tries to come back the year after, torn rotator cuff. That he admits he didn't know about. But he had tore it. And we've seen it with all the greats, right? Bird, his back gave out. Ewing, his knees gave out. Jordan played on one leg with the Wizards. But I want to know from you, do you think this is age? Or do you just think what we saw from the Atlanta Hawks game was simply a shooting slump that now he is working himself out of? And if last night was any indication of what's to come, the Los Angeles Lakers, in terms of LeBron James and his play, are absolutely fine. Now, Los Angeles Lakers have a lot of questions that they need answered, and they need to make a couple of moves. But I'm not here to get into the Los Angeles Lakers quite yet. We'll do that probably next week. But the most important player over the last decade and a half has been LeBron James. We all knew this time was coming. The only question I'm asking now is if it's here now. 641-1010 is the number to give your opinion on the text line or the MyBookie digital studios. But let's look at the NBA from a macro level. The Orlando Magic have been looking very, very good in the absence of Paolo Banchero. Who are some teams out west, who are some teams out east that can be a challenge to teams such as the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Boston Celtics? We'll figure all that out and more with Dan Favale of Bleacher Report. He joins us next on Open Gym on 1010XL and 92.5 FM.
1.
Frangie and Hicken on Mondays.
2.
Denny Thompson and Hacker on Wednesdays.
Who's counting?
1010XL now has 2 original Gator podcasts each week.
One for you, one for me.
Search 1010XL Florida Gators wherever you find podcasts or visit 1010XL.com.
Hey, Jaguars fans, as the official whiskey of the NFL, it's not a kickoff without the generous spirit of Crown Royal. And that's why we've built the Crown Royal Rig. An absurdly awesome 18-wheeler delivering the generous spirit to stadiums and tailgates across the country. Follow the Royal Rig on its journey from city to city, bringing together local cuisine, NFL legends, and the opportunity to pack a purple bag for charity and win tickets to Super Bowl 59. Visit crownroyal.com for rules and more, and please drink responsibly.
It's the Gator Podcast Channel with Frank Frangie and me, Dan Hicken, on all things Gators. Hacker and Denny Thompson have Gator Bites, and you can find them wherever you find podcasts or at 1010XL.com. Presented by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
Bet live with Hard Rock Bet. Real-time wagering till the very last play. Missing the kickoff doesn't mean all bets are off.
Delay a game on the guy who hasn't bet yet.
Sometimes you just know your team is going to come back. The sportsbook for every kind of player.
Hard Rock Bet. Roll with us.
Get up to $100 back if your first bet doesn't win. Payable and bonus bet up to $100, not a cash offer. Offered by the Seminole Tribe of Florida. Must be 21 plus and physically present in Florida to wager. Terms and conditions apply. Concerned about gambling? Please call 1-888-ADMIT-IT.
Prosser here for Lifetime Flooring. You've heard us rave about Lifetime Enclosures. Now let's talk about Lifetime Flooring. I can tell you firsthand, the product, services, best in Jacksonville. As you know, updating your floors is one of the most dramatic changes you can make to your home. Call the experts at Lifetime Flooring now and ask about their buy one room, get one room free promotion through Christmas. 0% financing, available to meet any budget. Visit their beautiful showroom just off Phillips Highway. And as always, tell them Prosser sent you.
SportsForecaster.com has all the data you need to project tomorrow's winners. Register for free and track the performance of all your favorite players and teams, including all your fantasy team picks and prospects. Sports Forecaster has the most detailed player profiles on the web, precise depth charts, every transaction, every injury, every news update. No ranting or raving, no preening or barstool bluster. At SportsForecaster.com, you get the timely info you need for every game. SportsForecaster.com. Sign up for free today.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville, it's all hoops. Open Gym on 1010XL. Now, another great guest on the Garber Auto Mall phone line.
Hello.
We can wiggle it.
It was our first ever guest to win the Open Gym show, came on to the scene a few years back, and it's always beautiful when he graces us with his presence to talk hoops with us. He is Dan Favale of Bleacher Report, also the host of the Hardwood Knocks show. Make sure to follow him and his great work on Twitter at Dan Favale. That's going to be Favale. Dan, how are you, sir?
I am doing well. Thank you for the kind introduction. How are you doing?
Good, man. Good. And before we get started and talking about the NBA on a macro level, with it being the Christmas season, just wanted to ask you, out of all the basketball you've watched during your time of loving the NBA as you do, who's the most gifted basketball player you think you've ever watched in the NBA?
Oh, man, that is a great question. Peak LeBron has to be up there, but I will say, even now, I continue to marvel at everything Steph Curry is capable of doing, and he is just must watch, even when he doesn't have the ball on offense. The guy is just always moving, like a pinball. And so you combine that with the shot making and the handle and even just the finishing for someone who's relatively slight compared to players he's going up against inside the paint. I think he's probably been my favorite player of all time to watch play basketball.
Certainly one of the greatest to ever do it, both on and off the floor, but certainly we marvel at his talent when he is on the basketball court night after night. So when it comes to this NBA season, Dan, I mean, there have been a lot of guys that have really sparked our interest, have really given us quite a showing this first half of the season. But have there been any players early on this year that you feel have improved from last season?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch. And we were just talking on the podcast that you mentioned about who the most improved players were this season. And the list is just like, it's at every level. It's guys coming out of nowhere. You look at sort of a Ty Jerome in Cleveland where he basically salvaged his career by entering the Sixth Man of the Year race. You have Peyton Pritchard in Boston, who's probably the favorite to win Sixth Man of the Year, but might win Most Improved Player as well. He has just been annihilating defenses on offense.
Right.
And the other thing is we have these guys who they're already established or they're household names, but they're clearly making these jumps. And I think four stand out to me in particular. People might not watch a lot of Pistons, but Cade Cunningham is he's probably an all-star this year. Also, you have Jalen Williams in Oklahoma City. The level of work he's doing on offense this year has been huge. Evan Mobley is finishing through contact better than ever, and he's probably like a top 3 defensive player of the year candidate as well. I think that's going to be interesting when you get to all NBA discussions. And I think the big one, not necessarily close to you, but in Florida, Franz Wagner is an MVP candidate.
Thank you.
Right now. And that's just like, I was someone who wasn't a fan of his contract. I thought Orlando should have negotiated the extension harder, but I had the Magic ticketed for, they need a trade or their season's going to be basically over without Paolo. And he's coming in and, I think people will harp on the efficiency, but he's doing so much. He's part of a good defense. He's setting up shots for everybody else, and you ultimately need someone to take those looks while creating for themselves. So he has been, we're actually about to do our awards ballots at the quarter poll, and I think he's probably going to be 4th or 5th on my MVP ballot so far.
Dan Favale of Bleacher Report, our guest here on Open Gym. You can follow him on Twitter at Dan Favale. Staying on the Orlando Magic, do you think that this team could be a legit threat out east? I mean, you talk about Paolo being out, and I know there were a lot here in the state of Florida and many across NBA circles who were probably closing the door on Orlando's playoff chances when Paolo Banchero was announced that he would be out for quite some time with that oblique. But Franz Wagner has stepped in. He has kept the team afloat. And honestly, I mean, he's one of the catalysts for the reasons as to why they remain the 3rd seed within the Eastern Conference. But I'm thinking once Paolo Banchero comes back, if Franz keeps this heater that he has been on this stretch of games with Paolo being out, this team may give a scare to a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers or even the Boston Celtics. But, I mean, that's just from my vantage point. With you being a part of the national media, kind of how are you seeing it? Could the Orlando Magic be a threat out east once Paolo gets back?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, their offense was doing pretty well when Paolo was healthy. I mean, we're mentioning Franz as an MVP candidate now. Paolo, through those first 5 games, looks like he was going to be an MVP candidate. I think what you've discovered in Wagner is we kind of always knew that he could shoulder a heavier scoring workload, and we've seen flashes of the playmaking, but now you've maybe opened up different staggering patterns where if you just want him to lead these units without Paolo when he's catching a breather, and you can flesh out your rotation more from there, I think that helps you come playoff time. My one concern would still be is that this team just needs an outside shot maker, like a caps lock outside shot maker. And when you get to the playoffs and defenses are game planning around you for a full 7-game series, I think you're going to see the brunt of their limitations as of right now. That could come back to haunt them. We saw it come back to haunt them a little bit against Cleveland. And so I still want to see them get a guy who could maybe open the floor up more for both Paolo and Franz. I know KCP is supposed to be that dude, but thus far he has not been.
Absolutely. They definitely do need another shooter around them, somebody who can definitely open up the floor if they have any chance of making a deep playoff run this season. Outside of the Orlando Magic, for you, Dan, I mean, I know they've been one of the feel-good stories to open up the regular season, but has there been another team for you that's been a surprise, whether good or bad? I mean, because I look at the Philadelphia 76ers, and they've surprised me greatly because I didn't think they would have such a bad start. And then on the other end, when I'm talking about a team that's been a nice surprise. I look at the Houston Rockets on that short list where I thought they would make the playoffs, but I didn't think they'd have such a hot start that they're having right now. So for you, has there been any team that's surprised you to open up the regular season?
Yeah, I think you name them, Houston, having the second best record in the Western Conference right now. We kind of always had a feeling after watching them last year their defense would be great, but they've been able to kind of hold serve on offense despite not having a ton of shooting themselves. Jalen Green, after an okay start, has been borderline detrimental to them. And to just see what they're doing, I think everyone's kind of begging for them to make some type of consolidation trade. But I'd loop them into the same category as the Magic, as if you can acquire just a shooter to be a part of your rotation, I think it opens up a world of possibilities immediately. And look, the thing with Houston is they might have that guy on the roster in Reed Shepherd if he could get some more playing time. Right. And then I have to shout out the Clippers too, just because I had them penciled in for dead after Paul George left with the Kawhi injury. They have like one of the 5 best defenses in basketball, being 6th in the West. Given the schedule that they face, they picked up a couple big victories. And you also mentioned the Memphis Grizzlies dealing with injuries again, and they're still just floating around the top 5 or 7 on both offense and defense. They continue not to make sense in the best possible way. And so they've definitely been a team that's surprised me relative to what they've been going through.
Final couple of moments with Dan Favale of Bleacher Report. He's also the host of the Hardwood Knocks show. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Dan Favale. You talk about the Clippers. I'm a little bit disgusted being a Los Angeles kid because I'm a Lakers fan. But Dan, I watched the game last night and the Lakers lose yet again in heartbreaking fashion. It really seems like they're struggling to figure it out. You being a part of the national media, is it time for me and Lakers fans abroad to panic about this team? And are there moves that need to be made, and how soon should the Lakers begin to make them?
Yeah, I think it's time to panic in the sense that moves needed to be made like 2 years ago, and they just never made them. And so I don't understand what the front office's vision was for what they've built, where it's basically you change the head coach and don't really make any material additions to the roster outside of Dalton Connect and then maybe a healthier Gabe Vincent, and you were expecting to be better than a team that would have a bunch of up and down games, So I tend to not be worried about LeBron. I think he even saw in the loss to Atlanta, like, okay, this guy, he still has it. He went through a rough stretch. We're just inclined to read more into it when he's older. But they need to go out, and at minimum, they need another type of big man to either play beside or back up Anthony Davis. And then this roster desperately, desperately needs a wing, an actual wing who's going to be able to give you a lot on defense, preferably without submarining your offense. And look, I think you could also make the case that if there is a third star available that you're able to consolidate into, that's also what this team needs. But I think more than anything is that it needs depth, trustable depth, because I think as of right now, you go up and down their roster, there's maybe like 4 or 5 guys that you would just trust on any given night, and that's just not enough to survive in the Western Conference.
Before we let you go, talking about the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference as we have with you, it really feels like maybe we're on the fast track to seeing a Thunder Celtics NBA Finals, but you do see the Cleveland Cavaliers and the start that they had. We've also talked about the Houston Rockets being really solid to begin the year. Are there any teams out west that you think can challenge the Oklahoma City Thunder in terms of making the NBA Finals or giving them a scare? And then also on the other side, is there a team out east that you feel can scare the Boston Celtics in terms of representing the East in the NBA Finals this year?
I think the East is the easiest one for me. It's Cleveland right now. They don't even have Max Strus back, and they're kind of ripping. I know they had those 2 losses to the Hawks, but then you come back and beat the Celtics. And look, I think they could probably use another combo forward like a Dorian Finney-Smith or Larry Nance Jr.
Right.
They have the ability to go out and trade for one of those guys too. So I think they're clearly the biggest threat to Boston in the East. In the West, it's a little tougher, but I still think it's the Dallas Mavericks that beat them last year. Even as they were struggling, they're hovering around the top 10 in defense. Kyrie Irving's probably been an all-NBA player so far this season. Luka now looks a little bit healthier. He's been playing off the ball more as well. And now you've gotten better stretches from a P.J. Washington, from a Spencer Dinwiddie, even from a Quentin Grimes. I know Klay Thompson has not necessarily panned out as they would have liked, but this team is deep. They are huge. And I think people have actually slept on them a little bit to start the season. So I honestly believe as of right now, they are the biggest threat to the Thunder in the Western Conference.
It is so fun knowing that we have a whole A lot of season left. We are barely 25 games into this, and we're always grateful to have Dan Favale give us insight when it comes to the NBA. He is Dan Favale of Bleacher Report, as well as the Hardwood Knock Show. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Dan Favale. Dan, as always, thank you so much, and we'll definitely be doing this down the line.
Most definitely. Thanks for having me as always. Take care.
There he goes, Dan Favale of Bleacher Report. The Dallas Mavericks. I wouldn't have thought that. I wouldn't have thought the Dallas Mavericks would have been a team to come out of his mouth in terms of challenging the Oklahoma City Thunder. However, when you look at teams such as the Phoenix Suns, and you also look at squads such as the Los Angeles Lakers, who got off to hot starts, now it seems like they're middle of the pack, middle of the road. Even teams like the Golden State Warriors started off hot. Now they seem to be a middle of the pack team. Definitely going to be interesting to see, just because Dallas, it didn't look to me that they got off to a hot start either. And that's why you play the games. And that's why there are 82 of them. Not all of these seeds are set quite yet. It's definitely going to be interesting to see. But one team I do want to highlight today on the show is that of the Houston Rockets. Like the Orlando Magic, they have certainly been a surprise team for me this season. Thought they were going to make the playoffs, but I didn't think they'd have such a great start as they are having. We will talk about that with Roosh Williams. He is of Rockets Watch, as well as the Rockets Watch podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Roosh Williams. He breaks down the Houston Rockets next on 1010XL.
And Fred Taylor is now in 1010XL's backfield.
Fred Taylor with 2 touchdowns.
Fred Taylor joins Dan and Jeff on the drill. Monday morning running back with Fred Taylor is fueled by Epstein and Robbins and Monahan Jewelers on 1010XL.
Happy holidays, Googans. Santa Dan here. It's the holiday season, and that means hopefully more off time with the fam. Need a solid gift idea for the spouse or a specific family member? Beaches Dermatology can ensure that your special someone gets a great gift that won't break the bank and won't go hidden in a drawer. Botox, skin treatments, you name it, they have it. Take care of that spouse of yours this holiday season with a gift from Beaches Dermatology. Call today or go online at beachesdermatology.com.
We're H-A-P-P-Y, H-A-P-P-Y, because happy Honda days are here. Everything is bigger. Bigger selection, bigger discounts, bigger trade-in values. Honda, quality, value, safety. Don't miss happy Honda days going on now at your local Honda dealer.
There's something special about radio play-by-play. Always has been. In Jacksonville, your place for play-by-play is 1010XL.
Now that's what I call high-quality H2O.
If you want high-quality water in your home at a fair price that won't scare you to death, then talk to someone who knows water and is not a pushy salesman. Contact your local water boy, Keith. I install premium equipment and can repair or even rebuild your existing system. In a business known for aggressive sales tactics, let me show you how my approach is different. If you've got any water problems, contact the water boy at waterboyjack.com.
Want to be up close and personal with the Jaguars as they take the field? Here's your chance to be in the shadows, outside the Jaguars locker room, now called The Vault. Enter today at everbank.com/shadows. One winner and a guest for every home game at Everbank Stadium. No purchase necessary to enter or win. Open to legal residents of the United States and D.C. 18 and older. Entry periods for the Shadow Sweepstakes promotion from 8/19/24 to 12/15/24. For official rules and complete details, visit everbank.com/shadows. Sponsored administrator, Everbank NA, member FDIC.
If you're searching for a new fence installation, challenge yourself to find a fence company with more positive online reviews than Superior Fence and Rail. With over 3,000 reviews and a 4.9 out of 5 review range, Superior Fence and Rail is, well, superior. So take the online challenge or let their professional team show you what superior service looks like. Superior Fence and Rail, where quality matters.
SuperiorFenceandRail.com. At Cannons of Jacksonville, they know that when you're towing anything, you gotta have products you can rely on. With over 50 years of fabrication expertise, the family at Cannons can repair or install precisely what you need to tow with confidence. Whether it's a heavy-duty hitch, trailer frame, gooseneck, tow bar, or any other towing accessory, Cannons will provide you with unmatched precision and durability. For all your towing needs, visit cannonsofjacks.com, where quality and customer satisfaction collide.
Does
the building you go to work in every day need a little love and attention? Jason Parker here with Performance Painting. Great companies take great care of the buildings their staff and customers walk into every day. If the building you're in doesn't match the vision you have for your company, we can help. Go to performance-painting.com. Our highly trained team makes the difference. Quality coatings applied with pride.
Performance painting.
1010XL is presented by Farrah & Farrah, exclusive injury law firm of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville, your courtside on Open Gym on 1010XL. Now, another great guest on the Garber Auto Mall phone line.
Hello.
We can wiggle it.
Houston Rockets, just like the Orlando Magic, have been one of the feel-good stories of the year. The Rockets currently 15-8, enjoying a top 2 seed within the Western Conference. What's been the secret sauce to all this? Well, when I was in Houston, I was told if you want the latest when it comes to the world of the Rockets, you look no further than the next man we have dropping gems of knowledge on us. He is Roosh Williams. He is the host of Rockets Watch, as well as the Rockets Watch podcast. And make sure to follow him on Twitter at Roosh Williams. Roosh, thank you so much. This has been a long time coming for me. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, man. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And before we get into the Houston Rockets, I just wanted to know from you, you've watched the Houston Rockets and have been a fan of the team for such a long time. With it being the Christmas season and there are a lot of individuals planning on giving gifts, who's the most gifted Rockets player that you've ever watched during your time of loving the Houston Rockets?
Ever? I think that's an easy answer. It's Hakeem Olajuwon. On both ends of the floor, you know, he was elite. Obviously one of the best defenders ever, the all-time leading shot blocker in NBA history. And then, you know, he was the number one option scoring on the offensive end as well, capable of taking a team to the championship back-to-back and winning it. One of the few, at least compared to recent history, one of the few superstars that was able to win a championship without an all-star teammate in 93-94. So,
absolutely, and certainly one of the guys who I feel is underrated when you talk about top 10, top 12 players of all time, that being Hakeem Olajuwon. But when it comes to this year's team, Roosh, I mean, can you pinpoint it? What do you think's been the secret sauce in terms of the success for the Houston Rockets as we sit here almost 25 games into the regular season and they're a top 2 team out west?
You know, I don't think there's a secret sauce. I just think this is what happens when a coach in Ime Udoka has a team of young guys bought in. They have veteran leadership with Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks and even guys like Steven Adams and Jeff Green off the bench. And they play hard and they play for each other. It's all kind of coming together in one. They are so connected on defense. And listen, the same thing that has them successful right now might actually spell their downfall as we go later into the season because they might gas out, you know?
Okay.
They are a high-intensity, all-effort type of team. And it's refreshing, you know, because I think today's NBA kind of gets a bad rap for maybe lack of defensive intensity or effort or lack of at least the officials allowing teams to play defense in a physical manner. But this team really embodies, you know, I've been calling them, not that this is a nickname I'm giving them, but they remind me of the grit and grind Grizzlies. They're like the grit and grind Rockets. They just grind it out.
Absolutely. He is Roosh Williams of Rockets Watch. Also, Ball is Life. You can make sure to follow him on Twitter at Roosh Williams. And I talked about Hakeem Olajuwon being an underrated player when it comes to all-time great players in NBA history. But I got to tell you, when I was in Houston for that year and a half, and I'm watching Alperen Şengün, I mean, this guy is an absolute walking triple-double. I think you even alluded to that on your own Twitter page, where you think this guy is just a walking triple-double, the things he's able to do on the floor. Do you think he's the most underrated player in the league?
I think he's certainly one of them, although I think this season he's starting to, you know, slowly getting his due and his recognition. I think he was on ESPN yesterday, so people are starting to take notice, but, you know, there's a world of potential with that kid. The Rockets run a very heavy pick-and-roll offense, so they don't even necessarily fully utilize him the way that they could be utilizing him. And in the games that they do, when they run the offense entirely through him, you really see his gifts shine. But yeah, he's a special young kid. He's 22 years old. Right. You know, just a great draft pick and a great find by the Rockets. They traded 2 picks to go snag him with the 16th pick, I think, in the 2021 draft. So a great find.
And you can't talk about Alperen Şengün without talking about his running mate, that being Jalen Green. And that's a guy I love watching as a player. Sometimes he can take a lot of questionable shots, but the Houston Rockets have awarded him with the extension. What have been your thoughts on the early play of Jalen Green this year?
Well, the first 5 games of the season, he looked very, very good. He looked incredible. You know, it looked like a young star guard coming into his own, feeling comfortable, finding himself. Ever since then, we've gotten mixed results, with most of those results not being so great. You know, he's one of the most inefficient, high-usage, high-volume guards, or maybe high-volume starters in the entire NBA. His shooting percentages are bad. He's not doing playmaking or creating at a high level this season at all. Nearly a 1-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. So it's been tough for him. Quite frankly, if he was playing up to expectations, then the Rockets would probably have 2 or 3 more wins.
He is Roosh Williams of Rockets Watch, also the Rockets Watch podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Roosh Williams. The Houston Rockets are in the NBA Cup beginning next week. Do you give them any sort of chance when it comes to Cup play in Vegas?
Yeah, I think they have a chance. I mean, like I said, they're going to grind it out so they can beat anybody. The downside to being a grinded-out team is that you generally play up or down to your competition, and that's what these Rockets kind of have been doing as of late. I will say I think they lose because they are matched up against the Golden State Warriors, right, I believe, in the first round of that Cup, and they just don't have any luck against that franchise. So I think they've lost 15 straight for the Warriors, so I think they might lose again.
Has there been an unsung hero for you on this Rockets team? You know, I look at a guy like Tari Eason, and I love the way he plays. He certainly plays both ends of the floor, but defensively, he's an absolute terror. Dylan Brooks has played very well as well. You talked about Fred VanVleet and him being the veteran leader that it seemed like the Houston Rockets so desperately needed. But who's been an unsung hero for you when it comes to this Houston Rockets team in the early stages of this 82-game season?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think it's Tari Eason and Amen Thompson. You know, they come off the bench with defensive intensity. They can guard 1 through 5. Full hustle. I mean, Amen Thompson is, I mean no exaggeration with this, no hyperbole. He is one of the best perimeter defenders I've ever seen.
Wow.
And I've been watching 3 decades of basketball. So, you know, I think those 2 guys are the engines because they really embody and kind of symbolically embody what this team is about, especially when they're out there together. And I would go so far as to say that I think the Rockets could potentially even be a better team if Amen Thompson would maybe start over Jalen Green because of the defensive ability, and then also because he is so good at cutting off the ball and he dominates the offensive glass, creates easy possessions and extra possessions for the Rockets.
Now, getting off the Rockets just real quick, because I did tell you that I did want to speak to you about the NBA on a macro level. And as a whole, I want to get your thoughts on the NBA and, you know, maybe whether or not they have a viewership problem. But what have you thought of the product so far this season across the league? Have you, as an NBA fan and a basketball fan, have you enjoyed the NBA in terms of what they're putting out there night after night?
Yeah, well, look, in the spirit of Christmas, I'll be Ebenezer Scrooge here for a little bit. You know, I mean, my favorite style of basketball is what I grew up watching in the 90s and the early 2000s, even into the late 2000s. I think the NBA's gotten into a problem with the three-point shooting, you know, and it makes sense mathematically. I understand why teams do it, but it is not aesthetically pleasing to just watch teams drive and kick and shoot threes. The game has gotten homogenous in a lot of ways, you know.
Yeah.
We used to have, like, footwork and handles and, you know, post moves, all that kind of stuff used to be a big deal. And different players had different styles, and you could kind of, you know, different players had signature moves and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like a lot of that has gone by the wayside, which is what is so fun about Alperen Şengün, by the way, right? He has a lot of those kind of tricks and footwork moves and all that. But yeah, that's my feel on it. I also think the officiating has gotten absolutely out of hand to the extent that, you know, if you watch some of these games and you really track the numbers, you will find yourself watching a game where teams are shooting more than 1 free throw per minute of play. You know, you combined, you'll have teams shooting 50, 60 free throws. and there's only 48 minutes of basketball, right?
Right.
And I just don't think something's got to change, because I'm not trying to sit there and watch free throw after free throw after free throw. And defense is fun, and it's fun to watch teams play defense.
Yes.
You know, so rewarding foul baiting and calling ticky-tack fouls 94 feet from the basket that result in free throws, all this kind of stuff. Something's got to happen with how they legislate the game. But, hey, that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm an old guy.
Absolutely not, because I do think the same thing watching the Lakers and the Hawks last night, and you just see three after three after three, nobody even waiting for their teammates to come up across the floor to be able to call a set or call a play and set some screen and roll action, or maybe call a few plays and see what they can get. It really hasn't been appetizing for a lot of NBA fans, myself included, and as well as yourself. Final couple of moments with Roosh Williams of Rockets Watch and Ball is Life. So if you were king for a day, Roosh, I mean, how would you fix this? If you could at all, how would you fix this in terms of how we could get viewership up, or just make the game more aesthetically pleasing to the casual and, for that matter, diehard NBA fan?
You know, I think it starts with the refs, because it's easy to blame the players, but the players, I mean, look, I watched James Harden for a decade, right?
Right.
And people hated James Harden for how he manipulated the game. And I always said, hey, if the refs don't reward it, then guess what, man? James Harden's going to stop he's going to stop, trying to foul bait.
Right.
So I start with the refs. And frankly, I start with Adam Silver, because Adam Silver has the power to tell the referees what to do, right? But I think that this is what the NBA wants. I think they want offense to be easier. So I think they are intentionally legislating the game the way that they're doing. So I would start with bringing hand checking back, and not like aggressive, crazy hand checking, but you should be able to just, get a little bit physical. And I think if you do that, then you're going to see, just the simple DHOs, dribble handoffs, and drive and kick. And I think you'll see some of that stuff change, because guys are going to have to fight harder for buckets. And so they're going to realize, like, hey, I can't just sit here and shoot threes, stand still all day because somebody's in my grill. So I think it starts there. I haven't thought this one through at all, but I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah.
Maybe you move that 3-point line back a little bit. Everyone thinks they're Steph Curry these days.
Right.
And unfortunately they're not. There's only one Steph Curry. So, the 3-point line was instituted to make things more difficult. Obviously, over time, more players have started shooting threes. And not only players started shooting threes, because I think players always could shoot threes, but coaches are allowing it and strategizing specifically to shoot threes. So everyone's doing it. I think if you move that line back a little bit, it gets a little more difficult and maybe changes things. So those are the two things that come to mind.
When it comes to the Houston Rockets or NBA talk in general, look no further than Roosh Williams of Ball is Life, as well as Rockets Watch and the Rockets Watch podcast. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at Roosh Williams. Roosh, thank you so much for doing this and coming on the program, man, and hopefully we're able to do this again soon down the road.
Hey, of course, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out. I'm always happy to come back, so just let me know.
Absolutely. There he goes, Roosh Williams, Rockets Watch. Ball is Life. Houston Rockets, I really didn't believe that this was going to be a team that was going to be a top 2 seed 25 games in, less than 25 games in for that matter. Didn't really think that they would start off hot as they are, but Alperen Şengün has definitely been a name to watch when it comes to underrated players in the league, underrated centers in the league. I don't know if I want to go as far as some people have, saying he's baby Joker, but certainly a guy that you have to keep your eye on when you talk about young stars in the league, especially guys that are under the age of 25, the stars of tomorrow, if you will. And we've talked about it for the last couple of weeks. The NBA having a viewership problem. How do you fix it? Is it a foul baiting issue that we're having? Is it too many threes? But I can understand a lot of fans, both casual and diehard, not liking the product right now. And the NBA has to see this. I mean, they see everything on Twitter.
Hey, did you see the Orlando Magic game the other night where 2 technicals were given out, one to Karl Anthony Towns and the other to Mo Wagner? Did you see that one?
Yeah.
For the clapping?
Yeah.
Like, dude, that's competitive edge. Like, you know?
Right.
I mean,
the refs always want to be a part of the game.
Yeah. It's like, dude, what'd you tee him up for?
Right. And that's something that Bruce Williams talked about, talking about the refereeing. And the referees have certainly wanted to become as big as the game is. It used to not be that way. Once we started learning the referees' names, who they were, what games in which they were reffing, and certainly once you got the whole gambling thing now coming into sports, but we're an NBA show, so we talk about the NBA. I think they definitely now try to be as vital a part of the NBA game for 48 minutes as much as the players are, right? In which who we come to see. Before we get out of here, though, got a couple texts here on the text line, 641-1010, and thank you guys for reaching out about the show. We certainly appreciate it. The 3206 says the Magic have been a fun team to watch this year. Speaking of the Orlando Magic, the defense has been amazing, that it has, but the offense can't get much started, especially from three. Who do you think's a realistic target for the Magic to acquire to help their deep shooting needs? And I pounded the table for Luke Kennard over the summer. I said, if you could try to get Luke Kennard, which it took him a while. He wanted to be back in Memphis, but it took him a while. Them being the Grizzlies to get a deal done with Luke Kennard. I don't think he would have costed you that much. But I do think that the Orlando Magic were a team that wanted to get a winning player on their team as quickly as they could. So they got KCP. And right now he's not shooting well from downtown. Well, what have we kept saying this whole entire show? There are 82 games in a regular season. Hopefully he is able to turn this around. But that's going to do it for us here on Open Gym. I'm RJ Saunders. Much thanks to Casey Dobson. The OGs have been here with you inside of the gym. Coming up next is Compton and Company over your airwaves, so stay tuned as they continue the talk around the NBA, as well as the Jacksonville Jaguars, who look to get off the snide, hopefully get a win in Nashville against the Titans. So for Casey Thompson and the absent Anthony Damon, I'm RJ Saunders. We will catch you next week on Open Gym.
Working overtime, this a job, no hobby. That's my cousin Lace, bruh. We no play, no games, bruh. I'm from Peace, skill, this ain't a game, it's a way out. Call me.